So the first thing that we did was remove all of the sod in the garden area. Luckily, we had people come out and pick it up for free. The next phase was to get landscape fabric down. Now Eric works ahead of me so often, so I don't have video of that. We installed this raw steel 6-inch edging from Coyote Landscaping, and I think this is going to work great as a border. I cut the fabric from the bottom of each bed so that roots could dig down deeper if they needed to. We picked up a wood chipper and we had to cut down some trees for a different project. So we had a ton of branches that we chipped up and created our own mulch for the garden area. At this point, I started mathing on how much soil I was going to need to purchase to fill these 8 beds. For a bulk raised bed garden soil, which buying in bulk is the better deal, it was $95 a cubic yard, and when I realized that that didn't even fill one bed completely, I was shocked. It was going to cost me over $800 in soil for these garden beds. I started looking at options to cut the cost, so I filled the garden beds with as many larger branches, logs, and old untreated wood as we had laying around the yard. I had learned about a topsoil / compost mixture, and we happened to have heaps of topsoil that we removed for a different project, and I decided to use that as at least a portion of my topsoil filler. So here I'm just adding some of that topsoil to the bottom of the garden beds. What I ended up doing was finding a product from my local landscaping company called Premium Topsoil, which was a blend of topsoil and compost. It was about $25 a cubic yard, and that's what I used to fill my garden beds, and I saved a ton of money doing that. I bought bulk perlite and I mixed that in with the soil as we were dumping it into each bed. Because I didn't think there was a lot of nutrients in the soil, I made sure to add some plant food into the hole of each start I planted. At this point, I put in my plant starts and my cattle panel trellises. So it has been a few months since recording the first 2 minutes of this video, and my garden is now in full swing. I put in a request for a chip drop and wanted to record the rest of my garden tour after I had that so that this looked prettier, but it's been 3 months and I have not gotten it. I just decided I'm going to go ahead and record this even though I have exposed fabric and it's not the prettiest, so just excuse this part of the garden over here for now. In this garden bed, I have a Ford Hook zucchini and a Salmon River squash plant. Both have gotten so massive since I planted them. I've never planted this type of squash before, but I'm really excited about it because it's supposed to store really well in the winter, and I'm hoping I can make soup. And the zucchini have given me dozens, and I've been able to make a ton of bread with it, so that's great. In this garden bed over here, this is my melon bed. I have 2 watermelon varieties, Blacktail Mountain and Love's Baby Bump. They have not been very prolific. I only have 1 melon from each vine, which that one was the larger one of the 2, and I just let the vines hang off the corners off the beds like this. I also have Kajari. I have 3 right now. I've tried this variety for the past 2 years and they look great in the beginning and then they die, I think, of squash bugs, so I'm giving it one more chance in my garden. And then I have Minnesota Midget Melon, which I love growing. The past 2 years I've gotten several. I only have a couple here in this bed, which is a bummer, but I love growing them and they taste great. I have 4 arched trellises in my garden going from inside of one bed to the inside of another, and the entrance faces north-south for all of them. This first one is covered in birdhouse gourd. I'm so freaking excited to harvest these. I think I have at least a dozen on here, and this plant has seriously just taken over. It looks so beautiful. I'll be honest though, this plant really smells bad. I try not to touch the leaves with my bare hands like that because then my hands just stink. I like to think the smell is keeping pests away. My wonderful dill plant, which has helped me make several jars of pickles this season. I'm about to pull my cucumbers, so I'm going to pull that too. This is my second arch trellis, which I'm growing indeterminate tomatoes on. I've got Dr. Carolyn on one side, which is a yellow cherry tomato, and it's grown all the way to the top of the trellis. And on the other side, I've got black strawberry. This is a beautiful tomato, and it's done super well for me the past couple years. I don't feel like it's been as prolific this year as it has been in the past, but I just think the color of this tomato is so pretty. I love looking at it. I mean, look at this color. On the far side of a couple of the garden beds, I planted onion starts, and this is my biggest failure of the garden this year. And it's such a bummer because I have been able to grow large onions in the past, so to have basically none except for these really tiny ones is really sad. But in the same bed, I have a flat cattle panel cut to 6 foot long, and it's about 18 inches off the ground. And I use this for indeterminate tomatoes. I've got an Abe Lincoln tomato and a Moscow Idaho tomato. And I just use these little green garden clips. I love them because they're reusable, and I use these to clip the branches to the trellis to keep them off the ground. Moving along, I have yet another arch trellis. This one is also for indeterminate tomatoes, but they didn't get quite as tall as the Dr. Carolyn. On this side, I'm growing German lunchbox tomato, which have done super well for me. It's kind of like a mini Roma tomato, and they're a beautiful dark pink color. On the other side is, I'm going to pronounce this wrong, but Grappoli d'Inverno tomato, and even Minier mini paste tomato. This one has given me dozens of tomatoes. It's nowhere near as tall as my other tomato plants, but it is loaded. Even when this plant was really small, I was so surprised by how many tomatoes were on there. I pick a dozen a day. In the same bed, I have 3 green globe artichoke plants. This is my first time ever trying artichoke. I may have put them a little bit too close together, and as I was recording this video, I was planning on removing them to make space for my fall garden because nothing was happening. A few days later, I saw my first artichoke, and I couldn't believe it because it just seemed like it cropped up out of the blue. So now I'm going to hopefully harvest a few before I pull the plant out. So here you can see I actually already cut my first one, and I have these really tiny other ones. I kind of wonder if they're worth it. On my last plant here, I don't see anything yet, but I'm going to give it a little bit of time. Moving on to my next tomato bed. This one is a repeat. I have a flat cattle panel, and I have an Abe Lincoln and a Moscow Idaho here too. I swear, I try to keep these pruned and clip them up, and somehow it gets way ahead of me and a bunch of stems fell over because they get so large or heavy, but they are doing well. My last tomato bed are paste tomatoes. I have a Roma tomato and a Napoli tomato, and these are held up with heavy duty tomato cages. One is a round pyramid and the other one is like a square with 2 pieces, and they hold them up very well. These plants are like a jungle, and I have to go on like a treasure hunt to look for the ripe tomatoes in the center. I try to keep them pruned, but it just gets so crazy so quickly. Moving on to my second failure. This is my last arch trellis, and on this one I am growing green beans, or I'm trying to. They took forever to sprout, and in 2 or 3 months, this is their progress. In the beginning, I did keep the tomato stems from getting too close, but now they're probably too close. But I don't have a lot of time remaining for the beans, so I'm not going to worry about pruning the tomatoes back. I have some peppers in fabric pots because I ran out of garden bed space. Most aren't doing well except for this one, which is loaded, and it's a corbaci pepper, I think. On the other side of the bean failure are more beans that are doing much better. There's tons of leaves, but there's also a lot of disease on the leaves, and I have no blooms yet. So right now I'm just hoping to get some beans before this rust or whatever it is totally takes over, but I'm trying to cut and throw away the bad leaves. In this bed, I have Pepper Station. I am loaded with jalapenos. I've got some bell peppers and a few mystery peppers. I think they're Cubanelles. They were supposed to be lilac bell pepper, but they're definitely not. This pepper right here, that one. I'm pretty sure I have enough peppers. I can make some salsa and hot sauces, so I'm pretty excited about that. The last thing in my garden beds are my cucumbers, which I'm actually about to take out. I grew dark cucumber on one side and national pickling on the other. I got 0 dars and dozens from the national pickling, so I'm going to cut out the dars next year and grow a smooth cucumber instead. I've been able to make many jars of pickles and a cucumber salsa, and they've turned bitter, so I'm going to clear that to make way for some fall plants. I'm hoping to one day in the future clear all of this and plant berry bushes all along this fence line. I think that'd be amazing. I'm also hoping I could put 2 more of these sized garden beds right in this area here, and then maybe 1 or 2 of the round ones up here, and then maybe use those for strawberries and garlic. So yeah, you know, it's one step at a time. Okay, I have a few oddball things on this side of the garden. I have these huge fabric pots with potatoes. I haven't taken the best care of these, honestly. I bought like 15 pounds from my local nursery for $4, and I decided I'd give it a shot. I mean, that's so cheap. I put the fabric pots up on the rocks because they get super gross underneath. I think as part of my future garden plan, I need to have like a flagstone paver area for fabric pots. And then I do have a green stalk that I put extra pepper plants in. I had way too many starts and I had such a hard time throwing them away. These plants haven't done great, but I have gotten a few peppers. Personally, I don't love the green stalk, no hate. I'd rather have these in garden beds, but it is a great way to be able to put those extra plants in. And this is just more of my onion failure. I really should have moved these closer to the edge of the beds, but you know, you live and you learn. And yeah, that is my 2024 summer garden. I love how things are coming out and I can't wait to continue expanding it.